Demonstrations, meanwhile, in more than 100 cities across the country on Saturday demanding justice for Trayvon Martin. This a day after President Obama's personal remarks on race the day before. Now, nationwide, nearly 91% of black murder victims are killed by black attackers. These statistics leading to a heated debate on Fox News Sunday about African-American violence and whether the real threats facing these young men are being ignored. Listen.
Really, to be clear, there are deep systemic problems that really impact African Americans in the system that have to be addressed, and I think the president spoke to some of those, and so we can't ignore that. And I mean, I'm going to acknowledge, just like anyone else, that everything is not about race, but there are some things that are, and we have to acknowledge those, and we have to make the systemic changes that are important to advance all of our communities.
All right, now Kirsten Powers, Daily Beast columnist and a Fox News contributor, had a lot of thoughts on this on Friday afternoon. That was before, I believe, the president spoke, right? Kirsten, yeah. Is right? Okay. Mm-hmm. David Webb, radio talk show host, with us as well to talk about this. And David, welcome here.
Good morning, Bill.
I've heard Kirsten talk about. David, what is your view on this?
My view is that there are two different incidents when you have a justifiable shooting as decided by the jury in Florida. But the outrage that I have is in the lack of really the national attention to what is an epidemic of crime in the black community committed largely by blacks. Yes, there's crime all across America, and we should report on it regardless of the ethnic nature or the ethnic identification. But the outrage is lacking from the National Action Network. The president is the president of the United States, and black-on-black crime affects a neighborhood and everyone, whether it's black, white, or Hispanic, because crime affects a community. So the hypocrisy is in treating one, which is what happened in Florida, which was a different incident, as an outrage nationally, and not tackling a really larger outrage where there are dozens and dozens of people being murdered in this country.
Right. It doesn't, listen, it doesn't get the attention it deserves, frankly. And for the families of the victims all across the country, especially in South Chicago, where this has been going on for a long, long time. Kirsten, weigh in. I've got a few more things after that.
Yeah, look, I could spend all day here talking about all the things that don't get attention in this country that should get attention. So this could be a really long conversation if we want to get into that. The president, however, doesn't really decide what becomes a national conversation in the way that the Trayvon Martin case did. That is something that sort of swells up from the people, and then I think he felt obligated to discuss it. He has discussed Chicago gun crime. In fact, he gave us a great speech in February on it. Michelle Obama's gone to Chicago. The president addressed all the different issues. You know, he's obviously thinks gun control is a factor, but he talked about the breakdown of the family, you know, and how important it is to promote marriage, and how this all starts in the communities.
Hang on. There are a number of points to be made here. Hang on one second, David. Michelle Obama did go to Chicago last week, but she didn't go on this story. You know, she took her daughters, and rightfully, she has every right to go and see Beyonce.
She went earlier in the year and she discussed gun violence.
I think here's the rub with what happened on Friday, is that the president talked about stand your ground laws. The defense never used that in the Trayvon Martin matter. And the president, rightfully so, talked about race relations in America. And although there were racial overtones in that trial, the prosecution, the state never argued race in the Trayvon Martin matter.
The jury instructions used the phrase.
In the meantime, this is the headline from the Chicago Tribune over the weekend. I'll get you all to respond to this in a moment here, okay? On the screen, please. 4 dead, 9 wounded in city shootings. This was just Saturday night, Sunday morning. Shootings left at least 4 men dead and 9 other people wounded across the city Saturday night and Sunday morning. And I got to tell you, for the people in Chicago, they would like a lot more attention, David, to that topic right there.
Yes, they would. And you talk about the president's speech. He wanted multiple bites at the apple. You know, most blacks are profile, anecdotal assertion. He talks about stand your ground, and Eric Holder, of course, now with the federal civil rights trial and the attacks on stand your ground. I believe in a review of the law. But in 2004, it was President Obama who co-sponsored a bill in Illinois that strengthened the stand your ground law. Little political hypocrisy there. On top of this, this is not a situation that the president should always step out on and just take all these political bites at the apple and never address the issue. He's going to a college on Wednesday to speak. How about going to Cabrini Green and calling for true attention to a failure of city leadership under Rahm Emanuel, under the police chief, and a community that is in, well, mortal turmoil?
That would draw headlines.
Yes,
and when
it
you've
would.
got the bully pulpit, you can do that. Kirsten, I'll give you the last word.
He went to Chicago in February and gave a speech. I don't know why we're pretending that he has not tried to draw attention to this. He also was he's responding to a major national outcry is why he spoke about Trayvon Martin. But I want to go back to this idea that stand your ground was not part of this case. That is absolutely false. In the jury instructions, they actually used the terminology from the stand your ground law. They used the phrase stand your ground. One of the jury members who did an interview used the phrase stand your ground in talking about how they reached their verdict. So this was a mentality that went into it. I think it's really disingenuous to pretend that this stand your ground had nothing to do with it.
I appreciate the input of both of you. Thank you very much. There is much to talk on this, and I appreciate the input. Kirsten,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you, Bill.
David Webb, thanks to you as well.